This is Andrew Wolf, and in this brief video I'm going to talk about pulmonary volumes and capacities. So pulmonary volumes and capacities are ways of measuring the volumes or potential volumes of air within the lungs during different phases of the respiratory cycle or different types of respiration. So generally, when we are relaxed, we are engaged in what is called tidal breathing. And tidal breathing is just us taking a relaxed breath in and a relaxed breath out, and we usually do this without much conscious thought. Now, usually tidal breathing uses a very sort of narrow portion of the total capacity of our lungs. So, and it's usually some depending. Now, all these values are really going to vary depending on a person's size and age and smoking capacity. So right now, this sort of graph that I'm using is sort of an average male. With an average female, the volumes are just going to be a little bit smaller. Okay, so with a normal person, we'll have tidal volumes of a total of around 500 mLs. So we start out at about 2250, and we take a breath in and we expand our lungs to a volume of around 2750, and then we relax our diaphragm and our chest wall and breathe out about 500 mLs, and our lungs shrink to a volume of around 2250, and we go through the process of inspiration again a few seconds later, and we breathe in, expand our lungs to 2750, breathe out, and they shrink to about 2250. Now, naturally, once or twice a minute, we take a deep sigh breath, or maybe we will intentionally just take the biggest breath we can. Then we need to relax or whatever. We've been working on the computer for a long time. So we inhale and take the biggest breath we can take in. And this breath is using all of our inspiratory reserve volume. So this volume that we've been breathing in here while we are tidal breathing is called the tidal volume, and it's usually around 500 mLs. Now, the tidal volume is so the tidal volume is between 2750 and 2250. Now, the inspiratory reserve volume is after our tidal volume. It's all the potential that our lungs have remaining between our usual every day from moment to moment tidal breath and the biggest breath we can take. So this is called inspiratory reserve volume. So this is that entire lung volume to our maximum capacity of 6,000 milliliters, and the end of our tidal inspiration, which is about 2750. So the average here is about 3,250 or so mLs. So that's our inspiratory reserve volume. Now, say we relax, go back to our tidal breathing, and then we decide to forcefully exhale everything that we can. Whoops. We forcefully exhale. But the mistake that I made here is I exhaled right down to zero, and that is actually impossible. We can't remove all of the air from our lungs. We can remove most of it, but with our most forceful expiration, our lungs still have some air within them. So we'd really have to sort of take them out of our body and squeeze them to get all the air out. And we aren't going to do this and live to tell the tale. So we just with our respiratory muscles, we're only able to breathe down to about 1200 cc's. Okay, And what's remaining here, what's remaining in this area, is called the residual volume. Okay. And the residual volume is everything that is left after a forceful expiration, and it's usually about 1200 mLs. Now, with some disease states, this can increase dramatically. For a patient with emphysema, for example, the residual volume may increase to 2000 or more, and that just leaves less room for inspiratory reserve volume and even for tidal volumes. But I digress with that. So this, between a normal tidal expiration and a maximal expiration down to the residual volume, is called the expiratory reserve volume. And this expiratory reserve volume is usually around 1000 or 1100 mLs. Okay, so I wanted to bring up some new terms here. If you add the tidal inspiration with the inspiratory reserve volume, this here is going to be called the total inspiratory capacity, or just inspiratory capacity. So this is the 3250 plus the 500, and it's going to equal around 3750. Now, if I asked a person to take the biggest breath they could in and then exhale forcefully until their lungs were completely as empty as they could make them, inhale the biggest breath they could and exhale as much as they could, this area here would be called the vital capacity. So this is the total capacity of our lungs that we can use for life. Okay? Now, a normal vital capacity, so the vital capacity is going to be the inspiratory reserve volume plus the tidal volume plus the expiratory reserve volume. And, you know, with an average male, it's going to be about 4.6 liters. And then the final volume I want to talk about is the maximum volume after a maximum inspiration all the way down to 0. This is called the total lung capacity, and it really is the vital capacity minus the residual volume, because the residual volume again is about 1200 cc's in a healthy person, or 1200 mLs, that cannot be used. It's just sort of static. Okay, so that is my introduction to pulmonary volumes and capacities. Please let me know if you have questions, and please remember to rate this video with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and please leave some comments if you like. Thank you.